Yo, what's up? Welcome to the Stacking Dinger Show. I'm your host tonight, Billy Jones. Sheep is shitting this one out. He has a little bit of a scratchy voice, so I'm filling in. Was supposed to have the week off, but here we are. Can't ever put it down, it seems like. We got some great guests here to talk about pitching again. Part two of the rundown. We're talking about those middle rounds where I have really been investing in recently. So tonight we have recurrent guests Brad and Spencer here. Pumped to have them both producing a lot of baseball content. So how you doing, Brad? How you doing, Spencer?
I'm doing good. Just happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Can't wait for this talk tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's jump right into it. This is probably going to end up being a long episode. There's a lot to talk about with these guys. So yeah, we'll start right into it. Here's a sheet from last time. If you didn't watch the last one, I'll just give you a little rundown of what we're looking at right here. I'll zoom in a little bit. So this is a sheet where we pulled current ADP. When I say current, I mean as of the beginning of this week. And you have the ADP breakdown here from we have pitchers 32 through 62, which we'll be talking about tonight. So that ends up being around 11 through 16. And to do that, to analyze that from a surface level, we have their innings projection from the BATX, as well as their total points, and then their per inning breakdown to kind of help you understand how they're going to score. And then also give more context to who these guys are. We have their strikeout per inning projection, as well as their K minus Bibee. And this is strikeouts is just kind of, and this is kind of telling you who they are. Are they guys going to run up a lot of strikeouts, or are they going to pitch more towards contact? Can they keep people off the bases as well? So that's what kind of these are. But we're going to talk about a bunch more than just that. So that's what we're looking at. We'll get into the first name right away. Spencer, tell us about Gavin Williams.
Well, so Gavin Williams, he's a very interesting pick here. I like that his name starts off the top of this list because, Gavin Williams really came into his own last season for the first time. He's been a bigger prospect that sort of hadn't succeeded for a couple of years. And then last year, he was pretty consistently good from start to finish throughout the season. And so I'll be honest with you guys, I don't really think that there's much to say that that's going to change. I think that Gavin Williams, for the point where, you guys talked about yesterday in the, or 2 days ago when you recorded the video with the other guys, how building your staffs at different point throughout the draft and where we're at now, depending on who you've taken before, you either want to go with solidity or upside. And I think that Gavin Williams, you can feel very confident in his innings and production for a second season. And he's still relatively young. He's, I believe, 27 or 28. And he's got a good fastball. The team is all right, but he pitches in a good division for pitching, going against the White Sox and, the Twins and stuff like that. So, yeah, I'm into Gavin Williams. What about you guys?
Yeah, I think that you mentioned it. He gives you a bit of both, right? He gives you the stability, but he also gives you the dream on it. There's more there. So I like him. Yeah, and he's also kind of ticks a lot of the boxes, good inning projection and so on. Yeah. Brad, what do you think of Michael King? Last year was a bit of a down year. He was being drafted way higher than this. And do you think that he's going to be a good bounce back candidate? Have you been drafting him a lot?
Yeah, so just to kind of talk about the groupings here, I heard you'll talk a lot about that. We got kind of some young guys that are going to be in this group that are kind of a bunch, and they're spread out a little bit. And then we got some more, I would say, newcomers, medium, and then we got some old guys like Robbie Ray, Sandy Alcantara. Anyways, with Michael King, yes, he got injured last year. It really kind of derailed his season. The season prior, I think he threw about 170 innings, had over 200 Ks. He's got immense upside, I would say. All of his location and his pitch, his stuff plus is above average. Now, is the injury going to affect that? I don't exactly know on that, but I think as far as upside goes, he's towards the high end of the upside in this range right here that a lot of them may not possess. So I do like him. Honestly, I'm drafting a lot of pitchers in these ranges.
Yeah, absolutely. I love what you're saying in terms of like thinking about these guys in groups, and this next guy kind of stands out to me because he's like a there isn't really like a standard bucket that he's going to fit in like the rest of these guys because he relatively unproven. He's smaller sample size at the major league level. And Trey, I want to say it's Savage. I think it's Yesovich. I'm not really sure. But when you look at his inning projection, he's at 136, and it's the lowest of this bunch. And that's because he's a rookie. So, Spencer, tell us about Trey Savage.
Yeah, and it is Savage, by the way. So you said it right the first
Awesome.
time.
That's way cooler.
It is. It absolutely is. So this was a guy that I kind of talk about how every year, no matter how much prep you do going into the season, there's still going to be people that come out of nowhere that you've never heard of, that all of a sudden you're like, holy crap, how have I never heard of this guy? Well, Trey Savage was one of those for me. Last year, I didn't know. A year ago at this time, I didn't know who he was. But man, did he come on with a vengeance last year, and he rose all the way through the minor league system for the Blue Jays. So he started at single A, went all the way through. He succeeded everywhere he went. They kept going. That pushed to the very end of the year where he was great and then great in the playoffs. So, I mean, basically, I'll tell you what my thoughts is as far as drafting him. I'm very cautious whenever I want to add him onto pitching staffs. I feel most comfortable adding him in whenever I already have, say, 2 or 3 more dependable veterans, and I feel like I can shoot for the upside. That's something I'll talk about a lot through this pocket of names, is like the type of builds that I think they work well in. And that's kind of where I'm at with Savage. I don't want to have to depend on Savage, but I think that he is worth the pick to have for, let me tell you right now, I currently am at a 6% ownership of Savage. So you see, I don't click his name that much. That's through 105 drafts. But I want to click his name, Dinger drafts. I want to click his name enough to where I have him if it works out. I think that probably the odds are against him, right? They've already said they want to limit his innings. They're going to have a 6-man-ish rotation. We'll see how long that lasts. But after they brought Scherzer in, when Bieber comes back, we'll see. He probably won't pitch straight through. But as long as he can help get you to the playoffs and then be there healthy and pitching at the end of the year, he could be a really good pick. So I think he's someone who you want to take, but be cautiously optimistic about.
Yes, around a team. You don't want to fill an entire team of guys with the inning limits concerns, and he kind of definitely has that. This next pocket of pitchers is a bunch of olds, right? Luis Castillo, Blake Snell, and old is relative, right? Robbie Ray, but guys that have been in the major leagues many years. So, Brad, what are you doing with this pocket? Do you see any of them different from the others? Do you kind of plan all the same?
So one of them I'm just not drafting, and that's Blake Snell. That's for multiple reasons. Obviously, there's some concerns with him right now, health-wise. But second off, I think I've mentioned this multiple times, I'm just kind of avoiding the Dodgers just with the 6-man rotation. I think it stays all year, and particularly him and the one that's going to show up here in a little bit are the 2 guys that have the most question marks kind of from last year. They have elite stuff. Snell in particular struggles with command. If he has his command, he's great. If he doesn't have his command, he's, just like some of the guys I heard in the podcast. Robbie Ray comes to mind, actually, another guy that's similar to that. So Snell's the one that I'm definitely fading in this group. I do think Robbie Ray, you are kind of probably paying the higher end of the price after last year. He's one of those guys that, he's not DeGrom or anything like that, but he has struggled with injuries. And when he's playing, he tends to be, a high K guy with a pretty high ceiling as long as he has his control. Hell, I remember playing DFS, and it was always like a joke for Robbie Ray. Like, which one are you going to get? And this is more 4 years ago than last year. I think he was a little bit more consistent last year, but his strikeouts were a little bit less than the last time he had pitched 180 innings. So you're just paying for that that maximum outcome, in my opinion. And then when it comes to Luis Castillo and Sandy Alcantara, what you're getting with these two guys is Luis Castillo. He's got, good stuff and good location. And then same thing with Sandy Alcantara. I mean, his fastball is kind of elite and what helps him. And at the end of last year, he really seemed to find a groove. I think he had I want to say it was, I don't know, 9 or 10 quality starts in a row. After he kind of struggled in the beginning, he really found his groove and kind of looked like the old Sandy. So just in this group, I think you're getting some stable arms, but the riskiest to me would be Blake Snell and Robbie Ray. But I am taking a lot of Robbie Ray. So.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about Luis Castillo and Sandy Alcantara is that the way that they get to being functional in this game is through a bunch of volume. If you look at the way that they score, they're not high strikeout guys. They're not going to score a ton of innings, points per inning. You can see they kind of are on the lower end from anyone who we're looking at this for the next several rounds. But they also have very strong inning projections, and so that's what's going to support them. And there's definitely a use case for that. We all are definitely targeting these high rate stat guys, because if they get more at bats, more innings pitched, then that's going to be awesome. But this ultimately is a total points game, right? And if you get a lot of total innings, that's really helpful. So those two guys really fit that well. Spencer, I'm going to give you another mouthful of a name. Cam Schlitler can definitely get that said wrong. Was absolutely tantalizing in the playoffs against the Red Sox. I remember watching that game, and I was just jaw dropped the whole time. This guy was just absolutely shoving it down their throat. Are you in on him this year? Are you interested in that 100-mile-an-hour fastball and just kind of the frame that he brings? What are your thoughts on him?
Cam Schlitler is very much like Trey Savage. I pretty much have them in the same bucket and think of them the same type of way. Both of them broke out at the end of the year last year and into the playoffs. So, again, I really do put them together in my mind. I draft him. I just looked 7%, so I'm right around the same thing as Savage, where I think he's worth mixing in, but it depends what team you do it with. I do think there's a good chance that he probably will stick in the rotation for him, but I don't feel super confident in that. So, the Yankees are sort of weird every year in the way that things end up going there. So I don't feel confident, but I do love the upside. Before we move on, I want to real quick touch on those pitchers that Brad just talked about. So I agree with everything you said, Brad. Fully on board. Blake Snell and Robbie Ray are definitely the most risky picks there. The ones that you probably should avoid, Blake Snell being the biggest one. But one thing that you pointed out, Billy, was the points per innings pitched. And I actually have a sheet that I have where it's last year's stats. So last year, Blake Snell, he wasn't healthy, right? He only had 61 innings pitched, but in those 61 innings pitched, he did finish 13th best at pitcher in points per innings pitched. So that's one reason why maybe occasionally Snell is worth throwing in, because Snell can hit really big with really big pop weeks, and he can have mondo strikeout games. We saw it last year. And it could happen at the end of the season. So if you have a good enough pitching staff that he could be your 4th or 5th, I do want to say Blake Snell may be worth occasionally throwing in, just kind of hoping for the help in the playoff weeks. But you have to get there. I get that. You know what I'm saying? But I just wanted to throw that in about Blake Snell.
It is a good point. I mean, also, I have a couple shares of Blake Snell, and it's not because he's a target by any means. It's just because he will fall 20 picks, and you're just well, if I'm gonna do it, I'll at least take this outrageous share of him and have if one of the better versions, I would think, in the tournament. So yeah, there's definitely a use case, but I don't know. I'm pretty skeptical that he's a good pick. And I hate that term, but anyways.
Absolutely. You really want to mostly avoid, but again, if you're not doing very many drafts, then you should just avoid him, right? If you're only doing a handful. But if you're a high volume drafter or you're doing a bunch of them, again, if he falls to the right place on the right team, I just wanted to say he's not worth someone who should be a 0.
Yeah, that's fair. I appreciate that take. Brad, so Ryan Pepio last year had to pitch in a minor league park, and he's going back home, right? And Tampa Bay has always or traditionally has had one of the better pitching parks. Are you in on Pepio, or is you kind of like fading that narrative?
No, I think the change in scenery is a good thing. I'm not gonna sit here and say that he's electric like Blake Snell or Robbie Ray. He doesn't have the same type of stuff, but he kind of falls in that boring but reliable guy that's a little bit above average with control, and he's going to get you quality starts. He pitched 167 innings last year, had 14 quality starts. Still fairly young, and that's subjective, I guess. But like you said, he's with a really good organization that particularly gets a lot out of their pitchers typically. They kind of find diamonds in the rough. They just moved Shane Baz, as we all know, this offseason to the Orioles, and he kind of flourished there. And I think Pepio is just another example of somebody who's going to continue to grow and possibly get better. So with all that said, I do like him.
Nice. I like it. So, Spencer, we started off the show with Gavin Williams. Now we're talking about Tanner Bibee. What is the reason to draft Gavin Williams when you can draft Tanner Bibee on the same team, not that much different? Seem to be projecting similarly-ish, maybe a little bit more innings. What's up with that?
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right. And what's funny, I just looked at my draft. I'm literally exactly 5.7% of both of them. So they're very, very similar. And last year, I would have said at this point when we were talking, I would have said Tanner Bibee's easily the better pick. I really like Tanner Bibee quite a bit. He sort of lost his way last year. So I'm going to look at Tanner Bibee's season. I mean, yeah, he stayed relatively. It was really the middle of the season his ERA shot up, but his WHIP stayed relatively the same the whole year. And I think that Tanner Bibee is probably going to bounce back. With all of this said, I'm not really in a lot to either of those guys. You know what I mean? Whenever I say 5.7% of both of them, there's just other names around here that I like more, that I click more, especially as we go down a few other guys. So, but it's the Guardians. They're not a super great team, but again, I like the division. I think a good reason why to look at pitching in that AL Central is there's a lot of sort of mediocre lineups.
Yeah, it's like if they were ever get traded, you're like, oh no, right? You don't get that soft landing spot anymore. But yeah, it's interesting that the way you put that into, like, you look at your exposures and you say, okay, these guys aren't like full fades, but they're not premium targets. You'll take your good shares and you kind of move on.
Mm-hmm.
So that's rounds 11 and 12. Kind of zip through those kind of quickly. Maybe we'll get more than around 16 tonight. But next we'll move on to the top of round 13 with Brandon Woodruff, guy who's traditionally been hurt in the past. Brad, what are your thoughts on Brandon Woodruff leading into the season?
Yeah, I mean, leading into the season, I was interested in him pretty heavily. As time has kind of went on, more injury concerns obviously have came up. I mean, his latest blurb is that he's looking to avoid the IL. I don't have any outside updates besides that. The one thing I will say about him is he's got, a higher upside than a lot of the guys in the same range. It's really a health thing. Just as Spencer was talking about with Blake Snell, probably a part I lack in my game is I just kind of try to avoid people with injury concerns type deals, but the price on them's fair. I have seen him drop to like 160, 170. He falls pretty hard with that blurb there. So if you have the right pitching staff, doing the right amount of lineups, I think he's more than a guy you can put in. I just wouldn't be overexposed to him because I think the risk there is pretty high since he hasn't pitched over, I think, 70 innings since 2022. But when he did that, he put up 1,000 points and nearly 150 innings and 190 strikeouts. So he's got the talent. It's just a matter of how many innings is he going to pitch. So
Yeah, and I saw a video of him in an interview just last week, and with him talking about the whole easing into the season, and it sounds like it's a plan between him and the team just to kind of make sure that he, hopefully for their sake, that he would be healthy for the stretch run, because the Brewers should be a contending team, winning the Central, looking to make a push in the playoffs. But he's very similar to Blake Snell, and also similar to Blake Snell. I just looked this up. Brandon Woodruff last year, in the limited innings that he pitched, he finished 7th, even better than Blake Snell, 7th overall at pitcher in points per innings pitched. So when he's in there, he can be really good. But I think he's maybe even slightly riskier than Snell, to be honest with you. So I have less, but he is someone that's good enough that I personally have a note, like, before this season ends, I want to get a few more Woodruff shares in as a just in case.
Yeah, and if there's no setbacks, it becomes a little bit more palatable. If we could get another injury notice, you're like, oh, then I'm out, right?
Right.
Yeah. So Spencer, this next guy, Bubba Chandler, another guy with interesting upside, but we haven't really seen it. And last year, and I haven't been really getting into him because last year he was a target and it was a big old nothing. So what do you think of Bubba Chandler? Pirates seem to be making positive trends this year. So you drafting him as your target?
I'm glad that this fell on me. Bubba Chandler is like my biggest target so far out of all of the people that we said. Why my percent owned of most of these guys is less is because usually I'm taking Bubba Chandler over most of these other names, because I want to shoot for Bubba's upside. Last year the Pirates, everyone knows, it was very well publicized how much they, pushed him, held him back, didn't bring him up until the very end of the season. He was the hot name of last draft season. Whenever no one knew who Savage or Schlitler was, everyone knew who Bubba Chandler was, and he was the sleeper rookie pick to take. But then everyone got upset because of what the Pirates did. Well, this year the Pirates are much different, as I've talked about a lot. The Pirates are making a push to at least be relevant, right? I'm not saying they're going to be good or a playoff team, but at least they're rising from the ashes to like somewhat of relevance to try to hope to keep Paul Skeens. I know that's what their hope is, even though it's not going to happen. Nonetheless, Bubba Chandler is huge, right? He can pump 99 easy all day. Major prospect, one of the biggest prospects of pitching in the last few years. And he's not looked great in spring so far. I'll say that. It's got me a little nervous. I'm over 20% of Bubba Chandler in the dinger, so I'm really invested in him. But I want to shoot for the upside around here with a lot of my staffs. And this, to me, is easily the name of what we've said so far that has the chance to be the biggest breakout. So, but what could hold him back? It's the Pirates' wins, of course. This is what holds Skeens back. If he's not getting quality starts, we don't know how deep he can go into games, but he should be able to strike guys out at a great rate. And I'm just hoping that it's going to work out. So Bubba's one of my favorite picks.
Love it. Absolutely love it. I'm glad that worked out like that. If you have other ones that you want to make sure you land on, message me in the private chat.
It's all right. If Brad talks about, I'll just go back and say if there is. Oh, by the way.
Yeah.
Well, I will say on Bubba Chandler, just a side topic since we are moving quick, as you mentioned. When you put him in the group of the young guys, and one of them was on your last deal, McLean, Savage, however you say Cam's last name, and Bubba. I mean, I personally have Bubba ranked the highest. How do you rank them, Spencer? I'm just curious.
Nolan McLean and then Bubba.
Okay.
So,
I just, and maybe it's just a cost thing to me, but Bubba, he's got a lot of good data out there. It, like you said, it just hasn't all came together, and it doesn't look great right now. And McLean's probably a little bit safer, but yeah, I don't know. I just find it interesting the order they go in, and I feel like Bubba's a little bit suppressed and a good price. So
I think it's because of what I said, because last year a lot of people were burned, right? And then people saw great stuff from Savage and Schlitler at the end of the year, and most people didn't see. But, Billy, I'll tell you, in the little bit of time that Bubba actually pitched last year in the final month, other than one start, really, he was really good. He succeeded. He did really well in his time that he pitched. So anyway, I'm just in on the guy.
Yeah, I remember his last start was pretty electric too. I think he went quality start, like 6 or 7 innings. I just remember it at the end of the season. So, anyways.
Yep.
So let's move on to the next name. It actually kind of stands out as a different profile than the rest of the names in this range. He has a higher inning projection, also much lower strikeout profile too. Ranger Suarez in a new place, Brad. Do you think he's going to be a good fit? Is he someone you're targeting, or are you this kind of compiler not really interesting to you?
For me, he's moving to I guess you could say hypothetically moving to I would say the Red Sox stadium is a little bit worse. It's one of the better hitting environments. So he's moving to a difficult environment that, Crochet's a lefty with that big wall. But for him, he doesn't have the same type of K data that Crochet has. So I think it's a little bit more risk. He's going to be a guy that pitches more to contact. He's going to rely on the innings, as you said, kind of like Sandy Alcantara. But with really, and I could be wrong here, I'm not looking at it in front of me, with 1 year of really reliable data of being consistent, and the rest he was kind of very spotty. So I think he's an example of a guy that is fine to draft. I'm not jumping out to take him. There's other guys I like in this range, like the guy right below him. Almost most of the names right below him. But he's somebody that if he falls, and I need to grab a pitcher, because I do, I'd like to get into some game theory talk as we go, if that's something we can do. But I'm kind of a fan of trying to lock up all my pitchers by pick 200. I'm not a person that's really trying to figure out the next Trey Savage. I know that's not necessarily what happened last year, but I just think you're really finding difficult things, Pat, once you get down there. And so I like to lock things up. So I do have Ranger Suarez, but he's just
I'm interested in that. Can we unpack that a little bit? So that is kind of counter to what I like to draft. Not necessarily like, I don't know. I kind of like finishing my draft with 1, 2, or 3 pitchers, because I just feel like that draft part of the draft is like rich with guys that are going to get innings. Sounds like you do it differently. Probably are targeting infielders and Jordan Walker. So I'm sorry, that bit is just too good.
Yeah. By the way, I have like 5% of Jordan Walker because it's just not looking great, but I do have a lot more in the bullpen, just to be clear. So I've kind of completely quit taking him. But yeah, I listened to the show yesterday, and I kind of know how everybody looks at it, and just looking into your data that you have, I personally think people are looking into things that I'm not seeing the same. And maybe I'm incorrect in this. I'm not saying I'm perfect. I don't claim to be a great best ball player, play a lot of it and do okay, but I'm not like Sam Olson or anything. But I've also kind of studied what he's doing too. And to me, when you get past, and I don't have ADP up in front of me, but when you get past like Jose Soriano, that 200-ish range, you start getting a lot more questionable picks. I find it crazy that people draft Matthew Boyd. I just think it's absolutely insane. I think it's hilarious, honestly, that he's drafted, because the dude is whatever. It doesn't even matter. But yes, there's guys with upside, but like today, what do we really know? And I don't mind doing it some, but I think people that have like 15, 20% of people past 200 ADP is absolutely absurd. I think it's a big flaw in everybody's game. I think the infield is way more predictable, and you can find a ton of guys in the infield that are perfectly draftable, that you're going to get production like you would at 150. And I think in the pitching realm, you can find them, but you aren't going to find as many, and it's a lot more risky. So that's just my take. I like to have 7 pitchers by pretty much Jose Soriano, and I'm not always doing that, obviously, because I'm doing so many drafts, but I'm comfortable doing it. Not that it's 100% confirmed data, but looking at easy sims and just kind of the way things come out, I'm not saying it's perfect data, don't get me wrong, but it kind of supports that theory of drafting pitchers a little bit earlier. But it doesn't mean you have to have 7 by 100. It's more so just not taking the risk at the very, very end. So
Yeah, it's just what you're saying is that in rounds 19 and 20, you like the infielders. You like
pretty
the bats,
much, yeah.
You like the bats better in terms of what you're going to predictably get than you'll get from the pitchers.
Yeah, and it's just where I'm at, and maybe it's a hole in my game. I'm not obviously I don't do it 100% of the time, but I'm pretty confident that that method is correct, and maybe I'm wrong. We'll see.
Well, perfect. This is the range that you're hammering then. So
yeah,
this fits well. Okay,
and
so go ahead.
I'll piggyback on that real quick. I'm exactly the same as Brad. Okay. We've talked about this. I've talked about this on my streams over on Draft Addict. Almost every single draft that I do, the entire draft season, this is how I've been approaching drafts. The final 4 rounds, whenever I look at my percent of what position draft, it's almost always infield. And I think it kind of boils down to this simple. You can hit late pitchers, okay? You can. There are going to be pitchers late that will work 100%. And if you want to dig for them and find them, great. But more often than not, they're not going to work. The later you go, the less often that pitchers work. So that's why this glob of names that we're saying, yeah, I 100% agree. I would love to be done with my 7, and I am with my 7 most of the time before the final 4 rounds. So that's it. I just wanted to piggyback on that and say I'm the same way, my same philosophy. But again, I won't always do it. I'm a high volume drafter. Part of doing the streams and talking about it with guys, I've realized maybe I need to do opposite of what I do, right? And I need to take some more late pitchers. There's some guys that I do like because I'm in other leagues on NFBC where I'm looking 750 players deep. So there are a lot of pitcher names deep down low that I am willing to draft and take, and I'm intrigued by. But for underdog, I feel that I'm losing my team's value by doing that whenever I could be taking a more proven commodity at pitcher earlier and still get a proven commodity-ish at infield late. So,
and one more comment on that, Billy, just to go into this, and I don't want to spend too much time, but I do kind of just have a thought for both of you, and we played this game for several years. How often have we seen a sub 200 guy in the pitching realm end up being a top 100 pitcher? I would say it's less. It's very rare. I mean, even Gavin Williams got steamed up last year. Mm-hmm. Most of the guys that ended up doing well got steamed up and were being picked pretty high. I'm trying to think of like Christopher Sanchez, I think was even going at like 160 by the end of it all. Mm-hmm. So most of those picks after 200 are already found and they're busting. And in the infield, there's a lot of guys that end up moving up in that range is all I'm saying. There's a lot of guys that end up with scores around the 140s. And next year it'll be 140s. Whoever that is. Anyways, it's just me kind of doubling down on like, there's just so much more, maybe it's boring, but so much easier to predict the infield, in my opinion.
Yeah, and the guys that I was targeting, I feel like in that last like 20th round, don't seem to be there anymore.
Yeah, they're moving up.
Probably why, yeah.
There's a time to do this, to really push it, and I feel like that time is largely past, and now because they've like all gathered up into this range. Yeah. So we're going to follow up that tangent with a little tangent as well before we talk about Lodolo, because I was in a draft with Spencer earlier and I saw him draft Hunter Greene. Mm-hmm. So what are you doing with that?
I'm so glad you brought that up. I was going to say it at the start of the show to get your opinion. So, and the opinion is
expressed.
It's obviously like WTF. So, right before the show, popped in a draft an hour before, and yep, Billy Jones was in it. That was great. So what that was with Hunter Greene, and I was on the phone with my buddy Duggar talking about the draft as it was going. And so it was post pick 100, and I already had Skeens and Woo, and I knew I was going to do a 7-pitcher build. And I had just told him at the start of the draft, I was like, I'm done taking Hunter Greene. no more Hunter Greene shares. And then it got past pick 100, and I was like, well, they have already come, and he came out and said no UCL damage. So, but I mean, honestly, it's probably a fade fully from this point forward with Hunter Greene. But I think there is a point where it's like, okay, he falls to a certain point post pick 100, and depending on who you have, like, again, even if he misses time, I could survive, and he could be healthy at the end of the year. And then now all of a sudden, Skeenswoo and Hunter Greene plus 4 other pitchers. So anyway, most of the time, though, I'm not going to be doing it. But that's why I did it on that team.
Yeah, I love it for the bit.
Well, Spencer was also drafting Profar in case he wins the appeal on that team as well. So
I did not. That's not autoed Profar.
I'm just messing with you. But
yeah, okay. So now let's get back on track.
All right.
Nick Lodolo, and one of the harder parts to pitch in, but has like an interesting profile, decent strikeout rate. Actually, on the screen that we're looking at right now, has the best K- Bibee percentage. So Spencer, I'm interested in Lodolo. I think that there's more juice to squeeze from this profile if we can get more innings. So what are you doing with Lodolo?
Yeah, Lodolo's a stud. He's really good. Really fun to watch. Very deceptive pitcher. He's really long, lefty. And generally it's probably best to stay away from Cincinnati Reds pitchers. But I've talked about this too on the streams. The Reds pitchers are somewhat intriguing this year. And I'm kind of into several of their arms, surprisingly. And Lodolo's one of them. I'm at 12% in the dinger. So that's me. I'm very willing to click his name in this range. I think that Ranger Suarez, who we had just talked about, is more dependable for the innings. So I think that Ranger Suarez is a dependable pick in the middle of a risky sandwich of Bubba Chandler and Nick Lodolo. But both Lodolo and Chandler have higher upsides. And Lodolo could just be a stud. If he just stays healthy, his problem is he's suffered with injuries throughout his career, but he mostly stayed healthy last year. Let me take a look. Did he spend any time? He did. He was on the IL,
I think he got a blister, didn't he?
Only 2 weeks. It was finger abrasion, it says. So
he loves
only
blisters.
2 weeks, but he was mostly consistently good the whole season last year.
And I'm like 85% or 90% sure that was during the playoffs too, because I think Mez had a bunch of them and he was pissed.
It was. I can tell you, it was during weeks 21 and 22.
Okay.
So yeah.
Anyways, it's coming back to my memory because I remember seeing that. But can you imagine the Reds pitchers in a different park?
I know.
Just just league average, not even good, just league average.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm doing the same thing with Lodolo. He's a target. So, Brad, we talked about a pocket of olds with a risky Dodger. So I'm going to give you the second pocket of olds with a risky Dodger. Yes. Flaherty, Evaldi, Gallen, and Glasnow. I mean, it's all the gray hair, Brad. What can I do?
You know what? Too bad Jason isn't here because he definitely looks older than I do. So just throwing that out there. No, I love talking about olds. This is my jam. These young guys, those are for Spencer and people that love.
Hey, I love the olds too, Brad. I'm right with you, buddy.
I'm all for the boring old guys. So actually, I was just pulling it up. So I'm just going to give you all my exposures. Flaherty, I have 18%. Of Eovaldi, I have 14%. Gallen, I have 18%. And then Glasnow, I have 0. So I haven't touched him. Yeah, okay. But this is just going to – I literally haven't drafted him in like 400 drafts. So this is just going to my whole thing of I'm not drafting anybody but Emmet Sheehan when it comes to the Dodgers. It's just the way I'm approaching it. Could be wrong, but still doing it. But going back to the guys, Flaherty, just looking at his numbers last year, yes, he's old, but he's still doing it. I remember just kind of in dailies, he's I'm surprised to see his K per inning, so high because sometimes it just feels like he does not do much. But overall, it was a good year where he was, I think, 20 or 30 strikeouts above his inning pitched. Still has it going for him more so than somebody like, it seems like Sonny Gray, he's going way higher. who, maybe isn't looking as good right now, at least. Eovaldi, it's health, but when he's healthy, he's pretty damn reliable. Also, his park helps him. So, I don't know what data you have in front of you, Billy or Spencer, but Texas Park has got to be, if not the best park, it's got to be a top 3 park at this point.
It's one of, yeah.
Yeah. And lastly, Gallen, he's definitely going to be the most boring of these guys and probably the most risky. I have 18% as I said, but I'm slowly trying to get that number down. I was kind of hammering that when he was a free agent, kind of hoping he would get a change of scenery. And for what particular reason, I don't know. I thought maybe he'd sign with Baltimore or somebody who would win more games. And was a little bit better organization. So I'm coming down on that. And then Glass, now it goes to the same thing on Snell and the same thing on Woodruff. If you believe that he's going to stay healthy, he is probably the biggest upside you could do at this ADP. So I just don't trust it. And I'm boring, and that's why I have gray hair. So.
You're absolutely right, by the way, in the fact that he is easily the riskiest. Brad, I do think that in my humble opinion, you should mix in Glass now occasionally. You shouldn't be 0. He should be like 3 or 4%, because Glass now is easily the best pitcher here when he's healthy. And even in 1-start weeks, he still can have. Again, we can just go back to look at the end of last year or any time in his career. 7 innings, 10 Ks, no earned runs is so easily achievable for him. And then that's a huge high-scoring point week. So I just think he should be higher than that. And you're right, I would bring down Gallen some. Eovaldi is easily, in my opinion, the best pick of this group. Not only for Park, but for just how good he is. Again, it's a health thing.
No, I agree. And to your point, Spencer, when you were talking about like Blake Snell and Woodruff, that's definitely a flaw in what I'm doing that I need to correct over these last 70 drafts. It's really just a biased annoyance from me, probably. I pick and choose what I'm annoyed by, and those 3 guys in particular annoy the hell out of me.
I get it.
Well, you also don't need to opt into additional health risk as further away from the season. Now, as we're getting closer and things are clearing up a little bit, you can feel a little more comfortable with that. I did pull the park factors right here just so we have them. And you can see Globe Life Park is was it 4th best or worst place to hit? Worst place to hit, best place to pitch. So confirmed, Brad, on your point here. Yeah. Okay, so back to the rundown. Okay, where are we at? Trevor Rogers. Interesting case here because guy who hadn't really done it in the past, and then last year had a really good year, right? And so are you buying in? You think it's kind of fugazi? What do you think's the deal, Spencer?
Man, Trevor Rogers is one of the hardest guys to pinpoint for me this year as to what I want to do with him, what I think of him. I really liked Trevor Rogers a lot whenever he was a rookie in 21 and he came out of nowhere and was super good. And then he struggled so much and he just was flat out bad for the last few years. And I thought he was done. Like last year at this time, I had pretty much wrote off Trevor Rogers as far as like a guy who I wasn't going to hear from again. But Trevor Rogers was so good last year. He was one of the best pitchers in baseball for the final 2 months. Finished with a sub-2 ERA. Just didn't qualify with enough innings. But I don't know what to think about him. I watched him pitch in his first spring training game. It was one of the first. I think he was like the first day of spring training. And he looked good that day. And then yesterday I saw him pitch, and it was against Venezuela, or it was against, I forget which team it was against. Brad, I think that was your cat, by the way, because I don't have one, so it wasn't me.
Sorry, I had to get up and like give him treats because all I could hear was in the background. Sorry.
But anyway, I think Trevor, he got blown up yesterday is what I was about to say. So I really don't know. I'm at 5%. I want to click his name every once in a while. Baltimore, I like Baltimore. They're one of the best teams, I think, this year as far as upcoming team who could win 90-plus games. So I think he's worth picking, but I'm nervous about it. I don't do it a lot. I think there's more dependable picks, and 2 picks from now is my favorite guy to target here.
Okay, well, you're lined up to talk about him, so that's perfect. Yep. So, Brad, the dumb narrative around Aaron Nola would be like every other year is a good year and a bad year.
That is the best reason to do it, and we are in an even year.
Yes,
so come on.
Low IQ logic, that works, right? But I can't believe that. But you seem to believe that. Tell us what's up with Aaron Nola.
I mean, first off, obviously you can't rely on something like that, but it is funny to joke about because it's just funny to talk about stuff like that. Do y'all know how old he is? I'm trying to look this up real quick.
Yeah, he's 33.
33. So here's my thoughts on Aaron Nola. I know he struggled last year. I know that some of the stuff obviously showed some declines, but at the end of the day, he's been a pretty reliable starter, and 33 is just not that old for a pitcher. Now, does he possess the most insane high upside? No. But he's been a reliable guy that can throw innings and kind of gets there through points for a team that's going to win games. I don't think he's exciting, but I do think you can do worse in this range. Or he's just a little bit, I don't know, I'm going to say safer, but I don't even know if that's correct. Now that I'm talking about it, he feels like the reliable name to me, kind of in this category that's done it many years. Do you disagree, Spencer? I'm kind of curious.
No, much more reliable than Trevor Rogers, who is right above him. That's for sure. Yeah. That again, I'd rather click Aaron Nola than I would Trevor Rogers most of the time. I just think he's safer. Last year too, he signed a big contract with the Phillies. He was a free agent going into the year, signed a big re-sign deal with them. What was it real quick? Hold on. It was he signed through 2030. So actually he signed in 24. That's what it was. So it wasn't going into last year. It was going into 2 years ago, but he had signed a 7-year, $172 million deal. So he ain't going anywhere. They're very invested in him. You can better believe the Phillies are going to throw him out every 5th day. So I think it's a good pick.
Yeah. I don't know if I want to call any pitcher safe, but one of the requisites to throwing a lot of innings is having thrown a lot of innings in the past. And Aaron Nola has thrown a lot of innings in the past, which has not been said by a lot of these guys in this range. So he brings you something that a flavor of something that just isn't attainable with a lot of these other guys. So I think that what makes him like a unique pick in this range. So Spencer, I'm going to scroll down a little bit. I'm going to have you talk about the next 2 guys. Mm-hmm. Both trades this offseason, Edward Cabrera and Shane Baz. Guys I've been targeting a lot this year. High stuff guys. You said you've been drafting a lot at Cabrera. Tell me about them.
Yeah. So, I wanted to throw this one last note on Nola. He missed a big chunk of time last year with injury, but it was ankle. Okay. So it wasn't like an arm problem. So I just wanted to say that real quick in case people remember him being hurt for a long time last year. So, Edward Cabrera, one of my absolute most favorite picks this year. Where I am at currently, I am currently sitting at 20% Edward Cabrera in the dinger. So here's the big thing with Edward Cabrera. If you've not watched him pitch, that makes sense because he's been on the Marlins for his career. And how often are people watching the Marlins unless you're a crazy baseball nut like me? Not that often. But Edward Cabrera is nasty. His stuff has always been filthy ever since he came up. He's had one glaring flaw and issue his whole career, and that has been control. This guy cannot not walk people. He has such a hard problem staying in games and not giving up runs because he gets people on base. However, last year, things started to change. So last season, he cut drastically. 1 second here. Let me pull this up so I can tell you the exact right numbers. He cut his walk rate down, and it's gone down for 3 straight seasons. In 23, it was 15.2%, 24, 12%. Last year, 8.3%, which is extremely respectable. I mean, it's still not good. It's still high. He needs to keep coming down from that. Don't get me wrong. But that was much better. And as a result, last year, his ERA and his WHIP were by far career highs. And that was a direct correlation to the fact that he is getting older. His control's getting better. He's going into his age 28 season. Last year was 27. And for the traditional history that I've been playing fantasy baseball of 20 years, we've always thought of people's prime starting between 28 or 27 to 29. So like he's right in his traditional prime age. And any worries about, oh, he's a Marlins pitcher, gone, alleviated once he got traded to the Cubs. So Cubs are a good place to pitch. You know, most of the time, you know, I would say it's traditionally a pitcher's park. So I'm just all aboard Edward Cabrera. And also one thing to be said too, from a draft strategy standpoint, you want to find guys that have the best potential return on investment. And this is one that I think stands out because he's so low here at ADP 165. And if you told me that he finished as a top 20 to 25 pitcher, I wouldn't be shocked whatsoever. So this is my case for him. And then Shane Baz, I'm not a huge Shane Baz guy, to be honest with you. He's good. He's been traditionally one of these guys that he's a what if pitcher for years. What if he stays healthy? He had injury after injury, underproduction. He was a big part of the Chris Archer trade years ago. So he's been in people's psyche, you know, for several years now because of that big high profile move. But last year was the first year that he stayed healthy. So Shane Baz finally put together a healthy season, and he was pretty decent, right? He wasn't great. He wasn't a above average standout, but he was good. He finished the season, you know, respectable enough numbers. Not great, but again, I'd like to think that probably Baltimore will help him out. He should be in a better position for wins. Overall, though, I don't take a ton of him because he's sandwiched between two of my favorite picks, Edward Cabrera, and I'm going to talk about the next guy too, Billy.
Yeah, just go take it, right? You want it, go take it.
Yes, Tetsua Imai. Brad, do you draft Tetsua Imai?
I don't, but in my research and talking to you earlier, I started to, and then in my research for this, I was like, I should be drafting more, just from what I found out.
So here's the thing. We never know, right? Whenever we have these high profile Asian pitchers that come over, we never know what level of success or failure they're going to have until they come in and show us. No better example than the last couple of seasons when we can look at Yamamoto 2 years ago and then Roki Sasaki last year. How hyped up was Roki Sasaki at this point last year? Oh my gosh, everyone just praising his arm talent and how good he can be. You aren't hearing a lot of hype around Tetsua Imai. I don't feel this big buzz or anything around him. But from what I've looked up and what I've saw, which again is very little. I mean, I can do YouTube research. I can look up what his actual numbers are on Baseball Reference. If you listen to Prospects 361, Tim McLeod, who's a longtime baseball analyst who really likes his Asian pitchers in particular. I've heard him talk about Tetsua Imai, and everything that I hear is Tetsua Imai is an above average pitcher. And he could be this guy that I just think is so sneaky in this range. Again, people don't want him. And even in the drafts that I've done today, Billy, even in what we just did, he falls a lot. He's not a name that people are like really wanting to click. So to me, he's kind of the perfect guy, especially as a pitcher 5 or 6, because that's normally where I'm looking at in this range to throw in. And then again, it's all about shooting for the upside of, well, what if he hits the high end outcome of what if he's, you know, even Kodai Senga, whenever he was, you know, healthy, he was good. So anyway, I'm very in on taking Imai. And again, I just don't think a lot of people are looking at him.
Yeah, I love him. I like so 2 years ago when Shota Imanaga came over, he was great.
He was great.
And I think part of it is because what they do is a little glitchy, right? Like
Their
have
windups are.
They have a unique fastball, something that's just a different flavor than what anyone is seeing here. And they're also polished pitchers, so they're not like a young guy trying to figure it out while also having this glitchy thing too. So by the time they have it, people have seen them multiple runs. So like I agree with you. Like Emai has been a target for me. The only kind of knock is that the Japanese pitchers have never they don't really typically have like same level of volume because they aren't built up like that in the same way that you see American pitchers are. But that's kind of gone away with the current major league, so it's not really much of a problem. I think that there's like a lot of potential value, especially for this upcoming season, if he gets figured out in the future. I do want to circle back to Cabrera real quick because I think he stands out on the page here. Like his strikeouts per inning are particularly interesting. There's only so many guys that are green here, and he is one of them. So I think that is great. And then I like Baz. I think that he actually, in my mind, has more innings in him than or that 151 kind of projection. Because I think that there's that projection feels low. So I feel comfortable with I need to rack up a guy who's gonna, I feel like running out there like every week all year. Like I like Baz for that. So
this could be his best season to date.
Well,
easily.
And just to talk on this real quick, I just on the Baz thing and the Cabrera thing. On Baz today alone, he had 88 pitches and 17 of them were whiffs. He's looking a little bit different this year so far. So I think he's just somebody to look into. I think if he stays healthy, he can outdo his ADP. That's one note on him. And then on Cabrera, I was super heavy in the bullpen. I think he's one of my highest owned pitchers, if not my highest. But my main concern with him, and maybe this goes with control, Spencer, and I think you and I have discussed this, and y'all discussed it yesterday, or Sheep did, sorry, on the part one, but how much do we care about quality starts? Cabrera historically hasn't been putting that together. I'm just kind of playing devil's advocate here. Is that something that you're worried about, Spencer, or do you think he can continue to get? I mean, he's got to make a jump in that to take the next level, correct?
Yeah, well, it's a great point, and I think you're absolutely right. Why does he not get quality starts? It's because he can't stay in the game. Because
Control.
He gives up. Yeah, because he walks too many guys, throws too many pitches.
Yeah.
So you have to get through 6. Just for anyone who doesn't know, you have to complete 6 innings with giving up 3 earned runs or less in order to qualify for a quality start. So it's a stat that rewards pitchers that don't give up a lot of runs and can stay deep into games. Used to 6 innings was not that hard. It's actually hard now. Not that many people do it anymore. But one thing I will say, quality starts, they do matter. Okay, absolutely. I don't want to try to downplay, but they're 5 points. That's how many points that a quality start will get you. So you can still have a very high scoring game without those 5 points from a quality start. If you get 5.1, 5.2 innings and you still get that win. So it's not something
the
that
win's usually thrown in there though.
Yeah, right.
Not all the time, but versus under 6. So
I'm not drastically worried about it, but I do think it's a valid concern. That is a point that was worth making, Brad. So I think that was a good observation.
And sorry, like I said, I'm still taking the guy. I'm as he's moved up, I've slowed down a little bit. So
yeah, he's not even got to double digits before. I mean, I'm projecting in my mind, him to get to a dozen. He had 7 last year, and that was his career high. If he doubled it and got to 14, that would be
he'd
great.
He'd be probably a smash.
But if he could get a dozen, that would be amazing.
Yeah, I agree.
So, Brad, I don't want to give you another pocket of guys.
I'm doing it. So
you get you want to start with Emmet Sheehan first, and then go to the old guys.
No, I'll give him Emmet Sheehan, and then I'll do all the old guys, and then I'll get my one that I want here in a minute.
Okay, cool.
Coming up. So I'm going to go ahead and just say Carlos Rodon. I'm going to speak like I'm Spencer. He has high upside. Brad does not draft him. He should be drafting him and draft him. I mean, it goes back to all these other guys because I don't have any. So again, it's a flaw in my own game that I'm realizing as I'm talking. It doesn't mean I'm going to go grab 10% of these guys, but having a small percentage is probably something that I'm lacking. And Rodon's, honestly, I even would say that Woodruff, Glasnow, and Snell, I'm more worried about than Rodon's current status, because theirs is still up in the air. Rodon's is more like he'll be back, but so it's definitely a flaw in me. So
And
I just made that statement.
Rodon has had injury problems in the past. This is actually a Rodon thing, that he is an injury-prone name because people know of him from always struggling with injuries. And then last year, he was healthy and he was phenomenal. He finished as a top 6 starting pitcher. He was so good. And then now he's coming into the year hurt. But like you said, he could be back a month or two into the year. And if you have no shares of him and you're a high volume drafter, what are you doing if he's be one of the top 10 best pitchers in the second half of the season and you're sitting there with none of him? With all that said, he could easily have a setback. Again, he's a guy we've seen be hurt before. So I have him at 7%.
It's like I had an intervention. It's like you're giving me an intervention.
Just
with all these guys.
Well,
sorry.
Well, Rodon is exactly how I feel about Cole. We'll skip down like a moment.
Cole too. Yeah,
same thing. It's the same thing.
I personally can't opt into a guy who's already hurt. Like, for me, I know that pitching is like a position that just kind of like bleeds away. And I get that maybe the timing of it, when these guys are going to miss, I'm going to have more pitching healthy because they'll be healthy early and these guys will miss early and they'll maybe come in late. That's like me being like too cute with it, but I just can't do it. Like, so I get like, Brad, the guys that you're fading that aren't hurt, like right today, Glasnow is not currently hurt. Like,
am I just thinking he's hurt? I guess I'm just thinking he's hurt.
It's just like the application of like risk there is because of what he's done in the past. Like Rodon and Cole are currently hurt. Right?
But
like,
also wasn't Glasnow pretty awful last year?
No, I mean, Glasnow is always good when he pitches.
Okay, I thought he had some really, really bad metrics last year.
I thought he took a step back. I can't.
Yeah,
I don't have it in front of me. But
pretty big step back from what I remember.
Well, here's the thing. From if you, I will say this without even looking at his numbers. He's always got a small sample size because he can never stay healthy, and most of his sample sizes are really good. And last year he pitched a little more and had a couple bad games, but still, you could pluck out any number of games where he was absolutely phenomenal because Glasnow's a great arm.
Just like yesterday when y'all talked good about Hunter Greene, we're going to learn tomorrow that Glasnow has a UCL or something, and I'm going to feel right.
You got to plan on it for sure. And one thing I will say from a strategy standpoint with all these guys we're talking about, for everyone who's drafting, again, we're high volume drafters. We draft a lot. Brad and I, Billy, I don't know how many you're going to finish in the dinger, but
I'm going to max this thing.
Okay, you're going to max. So we're all three going to be maxing it. Okay, so we're all maxing the dinger. So because of that, this is why I think that looking at these names when you're a high volume drafter is massively important for your portfolio. But on any individual team that you're drafting them, you still need to mix them in with good people around. You don't want to put multiple of these guys we're saying on the same team. I'm not looking to draft Rodon and Cole and Glasnow on the same team. No, they're going to be one-offs. If I have one-on-one team, I want to have 6 other good pitchers because the way I want to think of it is I can survive and I can get enough points with my pitching to help me until these guys come back. And then once they're back, the most important thing is not even what they do during the season, because I should have a good enough pitching staff to be first or second, regardless of Cole or Rodon or Glasnow or Snell. You know, what can they do for you in the playoffs? And these are the guys that can help make the big extra push. They can be the high scoring 2-week pitchers that can help you when it matters most. So this is my personal philosophy and strategy behind when I'm taking these guys and why to take these guys.
And to your credit, these are the guys that can be Jacob deGrom last year.
Right.
Yeah.
They are.
So I am looking at Fangraphs now. Glasnow was still good last year. 90 innings. He he had K per 9 was 10.5, the 3.19 ERA, like
Glass notes
xERA is 3.3, like he's dude's still a stud. Yeah. Okay, so moving on, who else are we talking
Emmet
about?
Sheehan.
Emmet Sheehan.
Emmet Sheehan. So Emmet Sheehan.
Talk about another Dodger pitcher.
Spencer, take it away.
So here's the thing. Everyone it talks to death about Dodgers pitchers, right? And why we don't want to take them, the reasons to not take them, the 6-man rotation, etc. But Emmet Sheehan, so I'm a big NFBC player, Billy. As you know, I've talked about this a lot. I do a lot of draft champions. I'm a big gladiator. I do the best ball contest over there. And there's a big glaring, the number one most glaring thing is Emmet Sheehan. So I just pulled up, I looked up earlier. So over on NFBC, where you're drafting 9 pitchers at 15 team leagues and draft champions, in the last 21 draft champions, so in the last 2 weeks, Emmet Sheehan is being drafted at an overall ADP of 117, as high as 96 overall. Now, I get this is a completely different format and a whole nother thing that we're talking about where your ratios can matter so much. With this said, though, this is a glaring, jarring difference in value from the NFBC drafters to the underdog drafters. And over on underdog, Emmet Sheehan's so low here. And it's because everyone's scared. But his upside is massive compared to a lot of these other names we're going to go through. And what if Emmet Sheehan does stay healthy? What if he does pitch twice a week because the Dodgers don't end up going with a 6-man rotation all year? What if the Dodgers make a big trade and Emmet Sheehan gets traded to another team where he's going to pitch a lot with this other team? There's any number of scenarios. You just bet on talent. And Emmet Sheehan's talent makes him one of the best picks here. All of this said, I recognize I don't have enough. I only have 4% Emmet Sheehan in my dingers. I want to have more. I just took him in that draft we did, Billy, just right before this, because I was going through and preparing for the show tonight and looking up all of my percent owned of these pitchers. And that one was glaringly stood out to me of like, man, I'm not drafting enough Emmet Sheehan.
Yeah, there's going to be a Dodgers pitcher that they're just like, we're not going to coddle him. We're going to let him be young and athletic and kind of pitch the whole time. Like, it could be him, right? Like,
could be him.
And if they have this, we'll call it like they have a six guys running all year, but the guy who is out is variable, and he's the guy that stays in the whole time. That is also a way he wins, because if you toggle that innings up, he's got that per innings, that those Ks, that K minus BB are just, they're just so green.
He pops
compared to everything else. He really pops.
Yeah, you just go look him up on Baseball Savant if you want to see a quick visualization of how good Emmet Sheehan is, because most all of his bars are to the high end extreme red, which is really good. So
yeah. Okay, so Brad, Shota Imanaga 2 years ago was a late round darling who I drafted a ton of, and I was just kind of praying for that upside. And he brought it kind of by the way of like some outrageous luck. It felt like his ERA was insane, and then some good volume. And last year we didn't get the same stuff. So are you buying that in spring training there might be a little boost in his velo? Are you concerned that strikeout rate that you look on here is the lowest on the page?
I just think if you're drafting Shota, it's the same thing as drafting Alcantara. Some of these guys we've went through. Ranger Suarez, he's just more of a arm that is going to get there probably by innings. I don't necessarily know that I'm expecting him to, outdo what he did 2 years ago. But if he can come close to that again with the amount of innings pitched and bring up his strikeouts a little bit from last year, I think he'll be more than fine at the ADP he's going at. I take him. I look at him as a high quantity, boring, safe guy. But he's clearly not, I know when I say safe, it's not necessarily correct. I just think he's a guy that you can draft for innings.
Yeah.
He's one of these names down here that I'm relying on a little bit more innings, but he's not exciting. So I understand people that skip him too.
Makes sense. So to start off the top of round 16, Spencer, is the same argument for Kikuchi too?
Not in my opinion.
Okay.
So I think there's a drastic difference in talent between Imanaga and Kikuchi. It's not just talent, but it's team situation. The Cubs are a drastically better place to pitch, better team, chance for wins versus the Angels. So Kikuchi was really good 2 years ago, and then he signed with the Angels last year. Let me give you an example. I'm going to pull up this real quick of Kikuchi. Why I never draft Kikuchi, by the way. I can't say never because I have clicked his name. He's a 1% for me. But again, I want to say what we were just I just told Emmet Sheehan over on NFBC in the last 21 drafts, his overall ADP is 117. You say Kikuchi's is 341 to show you the drastic difference. And if you wonder about Imanaga, his ADP over there is 170. So over on NFBC, which is, again, kind of like my mindset, Kikuchi's not even close to this range of pitchers. He's way worse than all of the rest of the pitchers that we are looking at. And then if we go to this, I pulled up in the scoring of Underdog last year, here's why people like him. He finished 29th best at starting pitcher with 909 points. That was the 29th best from overall points scored. But if you take that to points per inning, it's 5.1 points per inning, which was 134th best. So you can't, this is an example where you can't just click on his name, see he scores a lot of points and be like, oh, I want to draft this guy. That if you're doing that, then in my opinion, you're messing up because you're drafting a worse pitcher than the people who are beneath him just because he accumulates. So that, unless that's what you want, if you just want an accumulator here, sure, go for it. You know what I mean? So yeah, I guess that's my thing there.
There's a use case, I guess, for some like ugly volume, but it's ugly.
It'd have to be much later for me is ultimately the point. If he should be 20 picks past this as that guy that you occasionally throw into round 20, not a guy who's around 14, 15, 16 guy.
Yeah, and I agree with you there. So, Brad, I did it. I got you, Jack Leiter. Go wax poetically.
All right. So, Jack Leiter, and I'm probably overdoing it here. Again, this all goes to probably my Texas love. Which I'm an Astros fan, which is so weird. I love Langford and I love Texas pitchers. But anyways, that's just proves I really don't care much about the Astros. I live here, but it is what it is. So this is something I remember. I think I talked with Sheep back early in the season, early in drafting about this, but it kind of rang a bell. So first off, he's a guy that struggles with control. And Spencer, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but his stuff, it may not be elite, but it's definitely above average.
Oh yeah.
He does struggle with command. He's probably, if he maximizes his potential, he's probably a number 2 starter on a pretty good team. I don't know that he's a number 1, but just to go off last year, just something that stuck out to me, and I just think it's important context. He really, really struggled when he started last year. He ended up pitching 29 starts. And I pulled all this up because I think it's important. So I just look at his first, honestly, until we get to about the last 2 months is what I'm looking at. So I'm looking at August, September. Before then, very struggled. From August 1st on, he had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 out of 12 quality starts. In those 12 games, he had over 6K. Actually, we'll just go with over 8Ks and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, but in 3 of those was also 7Ks. He got control of his balls during that time period, and he started getting quality starts. And I think he just showed the potential he can have. just, and not that it's a big deal, but we've been talking about Edward Cabrera, and I'm not saying he's the same player, but last year in his really first full season, I think, he had, I think was it 12 or 10 quality starts total? And not that that's the biggest key, but it's him finding his control. I'm just looking that up one more time. He had 10 quality starts. Yeah. So, I mean, overall, I just think he's somebody that if you want to look at somebody at the end of the year that showed massive improvement, he found control and he kind of showed his upside, and his upside is 8 to 10 Ks a game if he's pitching with control. And that's he's going way too late, in my opinion. So, and that part also helps. And he's around guys like Eovaldi and DeGrom. I don't know what all that throws into somebody's, growth, but I wouldn't think it doesn't hurt. So, anyways, that's kind of my sell point on him. I don't know if I have to sell y'all, but I love him.
So. Yeah, no, he's a former first round high end prospect.
He's a pedigree. He's got it.
Yeah, he's got all the pedigree there. So I was waiting for him to kind of break out, and last year we saw that. And I think that it's interesting that a community that loves to buy into small sample breakouts, Jack Leiter hasn't seemed to be gotten the massive steam, which is interesting to me.
Yeah, I don't understand that. Yeah. I agree completely. I'm all aboard. Brad, I draft him a lot, don't I? I'm all aboard Jack Leiter train. I'm right with you. Everything you said, I second. I just wanted to say, Texas is also a fun team to pitcher stack. So something that the guys brought up yesterday on the show is from a strategy standpoint is it's like a gamble, right? But it increases your potential for multiple 2 starts throughout the weeks of the playoffs. And Texas is a great pitching staff to focus after because you can go get a good price on DeGrom, a good price on Eovaldi, a good price on Leiter. And then if you want to, you can stop there. But you could add another one if you...
You also got Gore.
Yeah.
Gore who got moved over there.
Yeah, Gore. Thank you. Gore's the other big one there.
Yeah.
The point is, that's a team. It's a team that this is a pitching staff that I've been focusing on trying to stack for this double start playoff reasoning. And again, just something that I wanted to throw in extra that kind of makes Jack Leiter even a better pick. I'm at 12% in the dinger. I would even love it. I was higher than that. I feel very confident.
I'm at 23.
Yeah. So see, you're fully on board.
Yeah. I mean, and I've been coming down honestly, just because I think I mentioned this on the Discord. I get a little bit not nervous, but I don't like to have 35% of somebody. And I was sitting there pretty early on, especially a pitcher. So,
well, Jack Leiter's the kind of guy where you want to load up early and let that CLV come in, and if you kind of let it come that way, as he just rises. Yeah, it just hasn't had the rise that I kind of was hoping for. Player who has risen though, Drew Rasmussen, kind of wild in my mind. I didn't expect this to happen. I mean the Rays have kind of always held him back, but then it doesn't seem to be the narrative this offseason. So Spencer, tell us about Drew Rasmussen. Are you taking pause at the new price? Do you think it's reasonable?
He's very interesting pitcher for over here on Underdog. I'm kind of not drafting. I'm a 3%er. I'm not really focusing on him. I was just saying earlier how I don't think that quality starts is a huge metric that I'm really worried about. But again, like with Edward Cabrera, who's not traditionally been good at quality starts, that's because I said because he's wild. He can't stay in the games. He's getting better. He could get more quality starts. Drew Rasmussen is a super, super good pitcher who doesn't get quality starts hardly at all because he doesn't go deep into games. And that's because the team chooses to do that. He's struggled with injuries multiple years in his career, but every time that Drew Rasmussen pitches, he's good. This is why I really focus on taking Drew Rasmussen where ratios matter on roto teams, because he's always got good ERA and whip. So you're just being held back by the innings. So because you're being held back by innings, potential team context, again, right next to Jack Leiter and some of these other names down here that I just like more, I've just been generally staying away from Drew Rasmussen over here on Underdog. Again, I feel much better taking him in a Roto league than I do here in this points format, because he's not a huge strikeout guy and doesn't go deep into games. Those are two things that hold me back from clicking his name.
Fair. I mean, I think that those are very reasonable qualms. And so, Brad, last name of the night, Shane Smith, Chicago White Sox, a team that we're not expecting to get many wins this year. Is he a target for you, or is that concern or reason to kind of shy away? Muted.
Muted, Brad.
My bad. Sorry. I said, yeah, I'm taking him. Not crazy. I just looked at 6%. He's somebody for me that I'm perfectly fine with getting. He ate up some innings. He's on a team that, I don't know, traded Luis Robert and then signed some weird people that doesn't make sense for what they're trying to do, but whatever. You know, his stuff and his location are, you know, his stuff is above average, and then his location is average, basically his command. So he showed last year that he can put up reliable innings. I think he threw about, I don't have it in front of me, but 150 innings, and
yeah, right at 150. Yep,
close to a K per inning if I'm correct. So he's somebody that I think is perfectly viable. I think he's getting to that end of, you know, as I talked about earlier, just kind of the names that still make sense to draft, but I'm not trying to go out of my way to get them. So
that still have upside, right?
Yeah,
like still some untapped upside with Shane Smith. That's what makes him an appealing pick. Last year, not many people know this about him. He was a Rule 5 pick. He was on the Brewers, and he was a Rule 5 pick for the White Sox, so they had to keep him up and pitch him all season. Otherwise, he went back to the Brewers. So he stayed up. They pitched him all season. He made the All-Star team. He was the White Sox lone All-Star. The White Sox are, I know it's so weird for me to be like kind of excited about the White Sox and the Pirates, but I kind of am, because both of those teams are improving. They're doing things to improve, and they've got exciting younger players. And Shane Smith,
Pirates are a lot different. Sorry, just gotta say that. That's a different level.
You mean better, right?
Yes. Like they're a whole different level than the White Sox.
Well, hold up. The White Sox were really bad, so improvement is not really like.
I just mean on a level of Okay.
Yes.
The White Sox have a lot of really. Let me tell you, 2 years
prospects
from now,
are great there.
Braden
Montgomery.
From now, we're going to be looking
huge names.
They're going to be going for that division.
Oh yeah.
The pitchers, they've got Noah Schultz, and anyway, we won't get into all of that.
I agree with that.
The point is, Shane Smith, I think, is a good pick too, and I'm right with you, Brad. 5.7%, so I'm right at 6%.
Okay, wow. So we were kind of zooming through the beginning of the show, but we settled in and turned out to be another almost hour and a half episode. This was awesome, guys. I really appreciate you guys coming on, talking about where the meat and potatoes of pitching is really, and this is like a really core range to get right. So yeah, I really appreciate it. Where can we find you? Yeah, Spencer, what is this? You got a YouTube channel, right?
Yeah, this is my first time coming on with you guys on Stacking Dingers, where I can actually tell people what I'm doing. So if you don't know, I started a channel back in January where guess what? I draft. We draft teams. Brad's on there with me all the time. Billy's come on with me. It's a lot of fun. We go on multiple times a week. It's Best Ball Draft Addicts. So if you just search Best Ball Draft Addicts, you'll find us over here on YouTube. And then you see right there my Twitter. I'm going to always call it Twitter. I'm never calling it X. At The Real Deal 136. You can message me on there. I've also got an email in all of my videos. So if anyone ever wants to email me and ask for any sheets that I have or whatever, anyone that wants my opinions, I'm always out here. So been having a lot of fun with that.
Yeah, it's been great to see you do some streams this year. And actually, not just some streams, a lot of streams. You got a fair amount of content you're putting out, and I really commend that because it's hard. Like, I mean, we do this recorded for a reason because we have the opportunity to mess up and and so on. So you're doing great with that.
Appreciate it.
Someone who's been doing a bit of streaming recently is Brad. I really appreciate you guys coming on to our channel and doing some live stuff. When's your next show? Do you have that planned?
I think we do. I believe it's on Saturday.
Okay.
Jason and Brad drafted Dinger, which I'm still, adjusting to that name. But no, I believe we're doing it Saturday at 8. I will double check with Sheep on that, but I'm like 99% sure we texted about that today. I was a little busy at work. But yeah, I'm enjoying coming on here, kind of doing shows, getting a little bit more involved in the best ball community than I have in the past. It's been a fun thing for me to do, and I really, really do enjoy it. And just talking with you guys, it's brings me a lot of enjoyment. So I don't have anything really to promote except for Jason and Brad Jeff Dinger, and you can come in and watch if you want to watch what not to do. But we just have fun. I mean, that's kind of what I'm here for. I'm not here to tell you I'm right over you. And then my Twitter is BRDMC3, and usually I'm just making fun of stuff. So
yeah.
That's
that show somehow has the best AI created theme song of all time.
Well, did you see that we're like being sued by Taylor Swift?
Well, we're not. Hold up. That is very much a stretch. It was that there was a warning that you guys were playing songs that you don't have a license for. It's not. Taylor Swift did not send us a letter.
I just want to think she knows who I am. So like that. This is where I'm going with this. I'm now like so popular. Taylor knows me.
Just give it to him, Billy. Just give it to him.
Just give it to him. Taylor knows who I am, and I'm now invited to the wedding. So I will be unavailable on June 13th. So just in case y'all want to know.
Unbelievable. Okay, well, thank you everyone who watched until the end. We'll be doing part 3 to do the real deep dive, like the end of the draft nuggets. If there's anyone that you have to hear about that may not be touched on because it's 20th round, make sure to put them in the comments so that we will make sure to touch on them in the next episode. But for Brad, for Spencer, thanks so much, and I'll see you in the draft rooms.